Welcome to the Epic Web3 podcast. I'm Alex, CEO and co-founder of Epic Web3. As always, we are event organizers doing events all over the world. Our next event is Denver. See you all there. I'm today, my co-host as always is Andy, co-founder of the Rollup, the educational and media company from DeFi. Andy, how's it going?
Going well. Excited to learn about privacy at the VM level and a lot of other cool things. So let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Our guest today is Zach Williamson, CEO and co-founder of Aztec Labs, Aztec Protocol, privacy first ZK rollup on Ethereum. Hey Zach, how's it going? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, life is good. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Yeah, to start, maybe you just give a brief idea of what Aztec is today and what are your nearest plans, because as I understand, you are moving from just being layer two to something bigger. Tell us a little bit more.
So yeah, what's going on? What are we doing? So you said that you mentioned that we might be doing something more than a layer twos. That's not strictly true. We are very much a layer two, and we are building a fully the mandate for Aztec is a fully programmable with privacy as a by default, where you can have strong user privacy guarantees when you transact with the network, and this enables the kind of basic transaction privacy we take for granted in the real world. By real, I mean not Web3, and allows for Web3 applications to compete on a more level playing field.
Okay. So what are the development plans for 2024?
Yeah. So we've been going for a long time. I mean, Aztec has been around in one form or another since 2018, so over 5 years now. And uh, since the start of Aztec, the goal has always been this concept of programmable privacy, just as the big promise of Web3 is that it can become a kind of a global marketplace for the world's assets, and a um, extremely efficient coordination entity for disparate groups of individuals to collaborate with each other. We wanted to do that, but with the critical keystone of user privacy and privacy in general added in. Because if you think about the hype around even something as simple as a DAO, where uh, one of the critical problems with DAO governance is when all the votes are public, which is not. There's a reason why we don't do that in normal elections. But the technology has not really been there to provide that, like to just kind of provide privacy as an add-on to existing uh, blockchain infrastructures, and we've been spending a lot of time researching this problem, bringing the technology and the state of the art up to a place where it is good enough. And so we've come up with we've released a lot of um, intermediate steps along the way. So this is actually the third incarnation of Aztec. The first one was in 2019, where you had basic transaction privacy on Ethereum, but it was expensive and it was very limited because of the tech. We then developed some groundbreaking zero knowledge protocols, particularly one called Plonk, which enabled us to produce Aztec 2, which enabled the first, I believe, the world's first fully private rollup at L2, and that was in production for a while. And now we're taking what we've learned along with some new advancements in the state of the art to build the new rebooted Aztec network, where we actually have proper smart contracts that can be deployed to the network. But these smart contracts have give developers the ability to encode private information, private variables that doesn't get splashed around the internet, but you can still prove statements about.
Uh,
So I'm just thinking, did I actually get to the end of your question? Went on a bit of a tangent. In terms of what we're doing this year,
yeah.
last year we released the Aztec Sandbox, which is basically like the very first version of this programmable network. It runs locally within within a developer's computer. It doesn't have cryptography integrated within it yet. It's just to give developers a feel for the user interface, the developer experience. And this year, the big goal is get the testnet out, get a proper distributed, decentralized hosted testnet with our cryptography plugged into it, so that we can give developers kind of the real McCoy, you could say, and then use the feedback from that process to do one final round of iteration before producing the final mainnet version of Aztec.
Okay, so uh, with so many layer twos, different layer twos and ZK layer twos out there, what is the reason for developer to choose Aztec right now?
Very good question. And obviously, I'm extremely biased here.
Sure.
We've always come to this space from the perspective of privacy being an essential property. Originally, Aztec wasn't a layer two. We were just doing smart contracts directly on Ethereum. We only added in the layer two capabilities over time because, we see it as a required property for efficient transactions. You need to scale. You can't scale on the base layer without security trade-offs. Therefore, build a layer two. But privacy has always been the goal. And that means that Aztec has a very unique value proposition compared to almost all of the other L2s. Most of the other L2s are focusing on throughput, on transactions per second, and possibly on staying as close to the Ethereum architecture as possible to make it easy to switch. For example, the ZK EVM. Our view is that the design space of what you can do with a smart contract is massively limited without strong privacy guarantees, and it's a little hard to see this without being able to experience what the alternative, like what a world with privacy is like. But the way I see it is think about the assets, right, and the value being transmitted on these networks. All of the value transmitted on the Ethereum network is, where's it sourced from? It's derived from the value of the native consensus token Ethereum and dollar-backed stablecoins. If Ethereum went to zero, every single token on Ethereum would also go to zero, with the exception of USDC and maybe USDT, depending on your views on it. And that's rather weak, in my opinion. We weren't. I didn't get into this space to trade around magic beans and chill tokens. I came here to really add value into the world. And the original cypherpunk vision for blockchain was to connect real world assets to a blockchain network, create a global marketplace of programmable assets, and massively improve economies of scale and make the world much more efficient and more accessible, and give individuals much more control over their own funds and their own assets. Why has that not happened? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. Naturally, scale and throughput is one of them, but the critical one, in my opinion, the key one, the existential one that's screaming at us in the face, that we all try to, that so many people ignore, is privacy. You cannot meaningfully tie real-world assets and real-world information to a cryptocurrency account without strong guarantees around identity. And you cannot put identity on chain without privacy. That's all there is to it, really. That's our thesis, and that's why we're focusing so hard on privacy. It's not really something that you can just bolt on to an existing transaction network, because it's not that you can just encrypt a blockchain and then make your transactions zero knowledge, and then voila, you got privacy. It doesn't work like that, because imagine if we encrypted the Ethereum blockchain. Great, it's zero knowledge. Problem is, if I send you some tokens, Andy, then some encrypted balances are going to change in that ledger, and every transaction that goes to you or goes from you is going to change the same balance because it's an account. It's an account-based state model, and that's not privacy. That leaks the entire transaction graph. You have to completely reimagine the state model for a blockchain network, and reimagine the transaction models for privacy to be accessible. And once you do that, that radically changes the semantics of your blockchain network, and requires an enormous amount of kind of attention to detail and re-architecting to take that new paradigm and provide tools and languages, layer tools and languages on top of that new paradigm to present something which is intuitive and familiar to a developer. And so that's what we're doing. And that's why a developer would pick Aztec, because the number of people trying to do that are exceptionally small. I can count them on one hand, and if you chopped off a few of my fingers, I could still do that. And obviously, I'm quite biased. I think that we're the furthest along. I think we've got the best technology, and I think that we've found the best abstractions and the best solutions to these problems.
So I've got like a ton of questions, but I'll try to just start slow here. So do you guys write your smart contracts for your L2 in Solidity?
No. So we have a programming language called Noir,
Okay.
which compiles programs directly to zero-knowledge circuits. And all our contracts on Aztec are written in Noir. Even the protocol logic within the L2 is written in Noir. And the reason why it's not written in Solidity is because of what I said earlier, that you have to to add privacy into a transaction, you need radically different ways of radically different semantics, radically different state models, and the Ethereum virtual machine just doesn't support any of the required and necessary concepts. So we had to come up with a new language.
Yeah. So like if I take a snapshot of a given block state on Ethereum mainnet, and then of a Ethereum equivalent ZK rollup or ZK EVM, and then I took a snapshot of the state of Aztec on testnet or on whichever kind of setting exists now. What is the differences in state on those snapshots? Like, is it a count? Is it like how is it different?
So we call that a hybrid state model. Let's start with how you do privacy to start with. Like let's if you don't mind, let's dive into some of the weeds. We have to use for private state. You need a state model which is much closer to Bitcoin. The concept of unspent transaction objects. The idea is that instead of a user having an account and that account owning assets, the state, in this case tokens, would be discrete entries within the ledger. So if I held 10 shielded Ethereum, there would be, we call them notes. There would be a note in the state tree that says if that's encrypted, but if you were to decrypt it, well, basically that note would say Zach owns 10 shielded Ethereum. And then to spend that note, you have to effectively destroy it and recreate new notes in its place, where you can have multiple notes, but the values have to add up to the inputs. And so making that whole concept abstract and programmable was quite challenging, because we talk about notes and value, but with Aztec and Aztec smart contracts, those notes just contain data, information that's defined, and the rules around what that information says and how it's transformed is defined by a smart contract. So it could be an identity certificate, it could be tokens, it could be derivatives, it could be whatever you want it to be. But the difficulty here is that these transactions, they have to destroy the old state and create new ones in its place. And that leads to inevitable downstream consequences with regards to things like race conditions. I think maybe did Cardano run into this when they tried to do DeFi with a UTXO model? Basically, if you have to destroy an object in order to interact with it, then two people can't interact with that object at the same time, two or more. And so, how do you represent the liquidity in a DeFi contract that way? Well, you can't. And also, how do you represent global states whilst protecting privacy? You can't. If you think about something like Uniswap, what's the total amount of DAI liquidity in a Uniswap contract? Well, that information needs to be public. You can't encrypt it, because if it's encrypted, there's a decryption key that somebody knows, and so therefore it's not accessible. So we have a hybrid model. The idea is that we have two databases. One of them is this UTXO fully encrypted model, and the other one is a more conventional public state tree, account-based, which is not encrypted. And the idea is that within Aztec, you can build these hybrid applications where in an Aztec contract, your contract can be composed of public and private functions, where the public functions modify the account state database, and the private functions modify the UTXO database. And with these abstractions, you can build up very sophisticated contracts that still provide strong privacy guarantees.
Cheers. Yeah, it feels like there's just a lot there, and my mind just goes to unfortunately to our fellow guy on video on Twitter the other day from Tornado Cash, who's just pleading for his life because of Tornado Cash,
Yes.
which of course was used for malicious purposes across the board, but there's kind of a war on privacy, isn't there?
I think there is. It's very unfortunate. I feel like there's multiple strands to pull out here. One of them is that there is a cultural consensus as much as like the wider non-technical community knows about blockchain and privacy. There's a cultural consensus that privacy is shady. It's used by bad actors. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, and it's only used to mix tokens, and therefore it's bad. So you have that angle, and then a corresponding reaction to, which is largely well intentioned, I think, to protect individuals and protect users. You then also have the other angle, which is that blockchain is a threat to existing financial incumbents and economic elites. At the moment, I would argue it's a threat with an enormous amount of unfulfilled potential and not particularly concerning. However, privacy, if a network like Aztec succeeds, now I don't want to be too arrogant here, so I'm not going to say, oh, Aztec's going to do X, Y, Z, but I will say that the problem of privacy on Web3, the first entity, a team to effectively solve this and create a distributed transaction network that's permissionless, can scale, and has strong privacy guarantees, and is programmable. The first one of those networks to take off is going to change things. It's going to change the amount of control that institutions are accustomed to regarding regarding either observing like money going through a financial system or controlling it. And I don't think those incumbents like it. So I think that what you're going to get as these technologies mature is very much a kind of a think of the children's style attack against privacy. It's used by baddies. I mean, you're already seeing that, right, with Tornado Cash. You also Tornado Cash is I feel like they are caught up within a little bit of an institutional power struggle within the American government, where who regulates crypto is very much uncertain. And so I think what you're seeing is a bunch of different power grabs from entities like the Feds to the SEC, where they're all trying to claim that mandate, and there's a lot of collateral damage as a result of that. That being said, like what I've tried to describe is sort of like the impressions and the interests of various groups that are acting with it, like to kind of enact the so-called war on privacy. But there's a huge education issue here as well, because I think that a lot of people are simply just not aware of what it does as decentralized privacy network really mean, because it doesn't really look like Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash wasn't programmable; it could only really do one thing, and that was that created the problem because it got used by the Lazarus group, and there wasn't any potential way to distinguish between good actors and bad actors. There was no customizability, and like I'm not throwing shade on the Tornado Cash people. I don't think they deserve any of this of the problems that they're dealing with right now. But it was easier to attack them because there was less legitimate. Like there was not so much legitimate activity. There was definitely some, right. Lots of people use Tornado Cash just for basic anonymity because privacy is being private is not a crime. But when the Lazarus group runs hundreds of millions of dollars through your mixing network, and generally the federal government really doesn't like people getting in the way of them trying to catch North Korean hackers. So that was a problem. I could go into a little bit about how Aztec's approach to this and how we're thinking about this coming, you could say, conflict, if that would be useful. So Aztec is not an application. Aztec is a network.
Yeah.
As in, on day one, when the Aztec network goes live on mainnet, there's only one thing you can do on that network. You can't shield tokens. You can't create a leveraged DeFi position. There's only one thing you can do. That's deploy contracts, and send transactions to already deployed contracts, which makes the way I see it, Aztec looks a lot like Ethereum or other bases or other L2s, where it's an execution environment, and like the argument that I would make is that there has been quite a lot of precedent that's already been set with the internet, where the site of regulation should hold on those kinds of networks, and that's at the application layer. We don't hold DNS signers responsible for the signatures that sign, like the content of the signatures they sign. We don't hold internet service providers responsible for the information going through the fiber optic cables. And I think that in order for a network aspect to really add value and be useful, it needs to be credibly neutral and permissionless, which means you can't, by adding in a centralized node of control that can determine who's a goodie and who's a baddie, you remove the permissionless properties of the asset network, which basically means at that point you've just got you've got some server running in a basement. It's not a blockchain anymore. Now you may argue, well, that means that ASIC shouldn't exist at all. And I'd say that no, because ASIC is programmable, it's up to application developers to determine the level of compliance they're comfortable with, and it absolutely is possible to distinguish between good and bad actors within an ASIC contract if you program it as such, with a varying spectrum of trade-offs between permissionlessness and security. And what we as a network want to do is provide the tools and resources to make it easy for application developers to be compliant in the jurisdictions that they're in. But we will not be applying any kind of control or forcing people to be to conform to standards defined and enforced in certain jurisdictions, because, well, A, the standards don't exist, and B, to do that, the ASIC network needs to have some understanding of what an asset is, what a user is, what an identity is. And the network has none of that. It's got account abstraction. All from the network's perspective, everything is just transactions going from contracts to contracts, and that's it. There's nothing else. And I think that, so when ASIC launches, there's going to be a race, effectively. We need to demonstrate very, very quickly legitimacy, that these kinds of programmable privacy networks are phenomenally powerful when it comes to empowering individuals and small companies to provide the kinds of products and services that would normally require enormous vertically integrated institutions to pull off, and create that kind of economic utility. Once that's demonstrated, I feel like arguing that these kinds of networks should be shut down will be similar to arguing that telephone networks should be shut down because criminals coordinate crimes through them. At least that's my take on it.
Makes sense. Can you share a couple of use cases, like privacy first applications, what they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's a basic one. So we all, like, the account abstraction is a big hot topic, I think, in Web3 at the moment, because it can solve a lot of the user experience problems with Web3 accounts. Right now you've got a public-private key. If you lose your private key, sucks to be you. You've lost your money. That's not great. How about, I don't know. How about sign in with Google or sign in with Apple? Imagine if that was that simple. That's what things like WebAuthor are trying to do, I believe. Web3 Author, I can't remember. Where you could have a contract which, instead of verifying the correctness of an Ethereum signature, it validates some kind of sign-in process through Google accounts. So you'd have a digital signature signed by Google, some authenticating entity to validate the correctness of that signature, mapping it to a user. Similarly, you could have two-factor authentication. So code gets sent out to your phone, and then you have a smart contract that validates the correctness of that code. That would solve the user experience problem. Obviously you're leaking a small amount of information to Google or to Apple if you sign in using their processes, and there's obviously a security risk there that you could get spoofed or someone could steal your account. But for day-to-day transactions, most people would be fine with that. I'm fine with using Apple Pay and Google Pay for my day-to-day transactions. I don't worry about that. But there's a slight problem here, and that's if that becomes mainstream, then imagine everyone could see your Web3 transactions flowed from not just an Ethereum address, but a specific Google account, I would argue that's a problem. I would argue that's far too much information that gets revealed, and people wouldn't be comfortable with that. In the same way that, you go on Twitter and ask people how could they be comfortable with broadcasting their Amazon purchases to the world. You don't get many takers other than the complete degenerates. But with privacy, that no longer becomes a problem, because that authentication contract that validates who you are is a private smart contract, which means that what you're effectively serving to the blockchain is a proof of correctness that you followed the Google Auth sign-in process, and that's it. Not even that. Sorry, ignore me. No, we have contract abstraction too. So an observer doesn't even know what contract is called. So you get perfect information obfuscation at that point. And so this is where I'm going back to the whole issue of identity. Being able to tangibly link an identity to a cryptocurrency account. To me, that's the killer app for privacy, because that unlocks so much once you have that. Imagine, say, take most passports these days, they're e-passports, right, where they have a little chip inside of them that signs our IC signatures. You can verify those within a smart contract. You can verify them within a private smart contract. So you can prove that you're a citizen of a certain nation, or at least that you possess the passport of a citizen of a certain nation. And that can allow you to do some primitive identity checks. It would enable more permissionless, decentralized products and services that still may require some kind of identity credentials, and it would enable the ownership of real-world assets using on-chain digital representations without that process leaking who you are and what you have and what you own. For me, like another killer app use case which is tied into all of this is providing high-quality financial services to the developing world, to individuals that live in states that have weak institutions, where the financial infrastructure is either lacking or can't be trusted. Being able to provide bank-like services to those individuals. I mean, that's kind of one of the holy grails of blockchain, but you can't do that without privacy. Particularly in parts of the world where the rule of law is weak. You don't want your neighbors knowing that you've got $1,000 in a Web3 account. And so again, that requires privacy. That's something that Aztec will do. Coordination is another one, like the DAO governance and governance in general. Being able to have a decentralized organization where the votes are private, or at least the voters, like who's voting, is private. I think that's essential for good, high quality governance. And you can have a spectrum of privacy here as well. So you could have an organization where the membership is private, the funds are private, the votes are private, everything's private if you want. You could have, like, on a spectrum from that to full transparency. It adds options. Something which I would be quite interested in from an idealistic perspective is helping, if this technology could be used to help finance dissident groups in repressive regimes and help those individuals coordinate with one another. That would be pretty nice, and that's something that private smart contracts could, in theory, do. So those are some of the use cases. Just, I guess, one last one which is a little bit more near term and perhaps more like immediately tractable, would be the simple case of on-chain gaming, where where you just get basic privacy guarantees so that people don't see all of your assets, all of your items. Another fun one, which is a little bit silly, is degenerate NFT trading. It's a little bit embarrassing if people know that you got rugged by stupid NFT projects, and that you sunk, I don't know, like $10,000 into them. So it would give those kinds of people a second life, able to pursue their activities without the shame and the stigma from them.
Yeah, I always thought of the use case of there's no way that one can have, imagine a world where your bank account and your stock account and your real estate and your bonds and any other like physical gold or metals or safety deposit boxes that you have are just public for all. It's basically like what it's like to exist on Ethereum today. The only thing that's the differentiator is that it's tough to really, if you're anonymous on social media or semi-anonymous and you do a good job of like hiding your addresses, all you have is like OX accounts. But people can put them together and then link them to you. I've always thought there's no, like, as much as the openness and transparency of digital ledgers are fantastic, there's no way that we get to a world where we have tons of assets, tons of people using crypto if there's not a sense of like similar levels of privacy that a bank account can have, or that like a real estate deed can have, or a stock account can have. It's like those are very valuable because they're private.
It's going to that's what we're trying to bring to Web3.
Yeah, but the problem is most of these talks seem to be like about the future, and it seems like we are not there yet, and we need, I don't know, more users, more dApps. I don't know why do you think we are not there yet, and what do we need? So so it looks like in 2024 the infrastructure is ready to bring like way more users, and what do we need to boost this adoption so that all these technologies can be valuable?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I'm very biased. So I think you need privacy, which means you need a easy to use privacy network on mainnet that you can deploy contracts to, and that does not yet really exist.
So
And
next year when Aztec is
well,
mainnet,
testnet this
testnet will
year.
be enough.
Um, well, we will see. Our process from testnet to mainnet is not going to be quite like the traditional way where you have a testnet, you wait a few months, then mainnet. It's going to be a much more organic process of sequential testnets as we increase the security, the confidence in the security of the network, because what we are building and deploying is fantastically complicated. It's using like not just state-of-the-art cryptography, but stuff like that's been researched and developed explicitly for the purpose of what we're doing, like by people within Aztec. I mean, you'll probably get some disagreement from other ZK projects, but I would argue this is the most complicated cryptography protocol that's been deployed, not just to a blockchain, but just ever, as a kind of as an actual product, in terms of cryptography that you can interact with as a integrated process. And so it would be foolish of me to say that a few months after a testnet you'll go to mainnet. Trust me, bro, it's secure. No, we need more confidence in that. So what's likely going to happen is a bit of a ramp up where we'll have successive testnets where these testnets are going to start to look a little bit more and more like mainnet as they evolve. And by that I mean perhaps they will be hosted on layer 2s like Polygon, where you can transact value with them. Perhaps some of the later versions will be on L1. So as for how far we get in that process in 2024, there are lots of unknowns there. So I can't really tell you. But I do know that process is at least going to get started this year, so that we can hit the ground running next year. But to go back to your original question, like what's needed? Well, very high quality tools and high quality abstractions around these fiendishly complicated concepts that make them that makes it easy to develop private smart contracts. So, for example, let's go back to Aztec 1. It's 2019. We've deployed to Ethereum a protocol where you can shield tokens, send them around, unshield them. That took us a year of work, a solid year of work, to do a very, very basic type of interaction, just to shield the token transfer. And now we want a developer who knows nothing about cryptography to be able to just do that in 5 minutes from starting with the Aztec sandbox or less. So what we want to do is hide the cryptography away from users in a manner that's secure, so that you don't have to think about things like encryption protocols, nullifier sets, Merkle trees, membership proofs, ideally, even this concept of having like these different state trees that I was talking about earlier, that gets refined. That can be refined. What we want to do is replace the complexity of privacy, programmable privacy, with a simple list of heuristics to follow if you're a developer that don't require complicated cryptographic knowledge. Things like, Aztec contracts have private and public functions. Private functions modify UTXOs, public functions modify normal state. Things like that. Like the reasons behind why that is the case, I could talk for an hour and a half about that, but it's not necessary. We will to actually progress with developing on Aztec. And yeah, I think once we have those high quality tools, and we've got a working network, then I'm very excited about what the future holds. Very, very excited.
So far, it must be extremely difficult to attract developers, I assume, since it's super hard,
Not really,
super
actually.
difficult technology. I don't know.
Oh no, no. I think the difficulty of it's not a problem for the right personality. Here's the thing about Aztec: it's a unique value proposition. If you have some cool idea that you want to develop that requires privacy, there's not many places that can give that. And so we're not going to claim, oh, it's easy, it's seamless today. It's not, I mean, if you're part of our grants program, if you're one of our feedback partners, then you're signing up to be a very early adopter. And so we're not going to try and pretend that there aren't complexities there. But we've had a lot of developers express a ton of interest in what we're doing, play around with it, apply to our grants program, to the point where we've got people who came to us and have been like developing with the technology that are forming their own companies, getting funded, which is very cathartic for us at Aztec to see that we've produced, and like even in this early stage, we've produced something which is tangible enough that people are willing to commit significant resources into developing on top of it, and other people are committed to funding them. So for example, Tonk is doing on-chain gaming on using Aztec for high-quality privacy. And then there's ZK Passport, which is doing these proofs of passport signatures that I mentioned earlier and turning that into an identity solution. And this is pre-testnet. So I'm not concerned about attracting developers, to be honest. I'm just mostly concerned about giving them a good experience so that they can get on with their job and build cool tech.
Okay.
Yeah, was that ZK Passport? Is that what they used at DevCon this year or this past year?
No, they used what's it called, Zupass. So that's a bit of an earlier type of technology. It's more mature, developed by the Ethereum Foundation. That doesn't use passport signatures, but the idea is that you have it gives you a private key on your phone where you can create zero knowledge proofs that you have a ticket. You belong to a list, and so it gives you a membership to a group without revealing who you are. Very cool piece of tech, by the way. It's I think it's the first zero knowledge, like the first practical piece of zero knowledge technology I've seen used in the real world. It really is quite
Yeah, it was super
remarkable.
easy. We just scanned the QR on our phone.
Yeah.
Click the link and then scan the QR. I had no idea there was any ZK behind it until I read into it.
Well, that's the world we're trying to build. As in order to make this technology mainstream, it has to be obfuscated. If we want people to create bank accounts that are using this technology, if we want to be able to do micropayments online using ZK, it just has to basically become infrastructure in the same way that like your average internet user doesn't know anything about the IPv6 protocol. They won't know anything about ZK and ZK snarks.
Speaking about attracting developers, what do you find? What works best for you? I don't know. Yeah, you're very active in terms of communicating with the community. I don't know what works best for you. Hackathons, grant programs, sandbox. You've recently launched one. What can you tell about it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one where the way I see it, when it comes to attracting developers, second order effects are really important. As in, if you have a good grants program, good luck. If you have great hackathon game and you're at hackathons, you're getting people through the good door, doesn't matter. If you have a fantastic social media presence and you're generating hype, no one big deal. You need all of them in concert with another and other things as well, because what you really need is you need people saying cool stuff about your tech, so that amongst their friends, amongst their peers, and increasing awareness that A, there's something cool here that can be that you can do something novel with. B, there are like you can get paid to hack around with this stuff, and C, you can acquire a bit of if you're just new to the space, you've got something to prove, you can acquire a bit of clout and by winning a hackathon with this with this cool technology, and so the way I see it is it's about the second order effects of just raising awareness, exposing the novelty factor, that you can do novel things with Aztec that you can't do anywhere else, and that it doesn't require, and that it's not intimidating. It's not like 2-3 years ago where to do anything in ZK you needed to be a cryptographer. You needed to be really deep into the scene, understand all of the basics, probably roll your own cryptography software just to get anywhere. It's not like that anymore. And that's the approach we've been taking. We've got a great grants team led by Bruno, who is doing an amazing job. And when it comes to internally, I think setting up a good user acquisition process. I think honestly, it's tough because it's not like you have great metrics you can use. It's not like you have paying customers, and it's not, and if you give out a grant, it's hard to vet the quality of the output, because if you just want to deploy funds to a grants program, that's very easy. You can spend hundreds of millions doing that if you want, but you're gonna get terrible returns because you're gonna get the wrong kind of people attracted to your grants program, and so determining who is the right person and if they're doing good work, and where to what grants should be funded, what shouldn't. In my mind, that's a very holistic process. It's not something that can be really that you can define really good metrics on. What you need is people in charge of that program who are really aligned, who care about the mission, care about getting devs onto your platform, and then you just let them roll with it. So honestly, if you want, I do think our grants program is world class, but I must confess I'm not the right person to ask about it. That would be Bruno, because he's the one that's running it.
Yeah, just curious how you guys are planning to fit in here. So we've got a bunch of L2s launching. Got this whole modular blockchain thesis happening. Then you've got some privacy stuff happening. Where do you guys fit? How are you guys trying to fit into the current infra stack?
Good question. So there are a few synergies here. For example, a lot of ZK outfits have similar problems, need similar infrastructure, and so you're starting to see these other projects that to provide said infrastructure. So things like shared ZK proving, shared coordination layers, and we'd be very interested in kind of using those, if they satisfy the correct, if they satisfy our required security properties, particularly things like data availability, as in. With privacy, the amount of information within a transaction grows a lot because it's all encrypted, and so even if your transaction is a single, imagine it's a vote, so it's an address that says who you are and a single bit for yes or no. Well, that's probably 128 bytes or something in an Aztec because of all the encryptions. So data availability solutions are very important to us, but we don't want to build one ourselves because that's not our core competence. And other people are. So we're very interested in fitting in there. When it comes to but I do see synergies, but also I do see Aztec as being quite separated from a lot of these other the other landscapes, because we're solving different problems. As in, Aztec is going to be a layer 2. There will be some level of scale, but we have some minimum viable product targets we want to hit with the mainnet, and that target is 10 transactions a second. So we're not talking radical scaling here, because that's not the value prop. We can focus on scaling once we've got the core fundamentals down. It's so much easier to scale a privacy network than it is to take a scaling solution and make it private. And similarly, like something we want to be able to support is the development of layer threes. I don't even know if that's the right word to use on Aztec. Basically, this idea of let's say you're running an application, it's got tons of throughput, loads of transactions, loads of data, but each transaction is low notional. So imagine imagine it's like in-game micro transactions for some online game. Your users aren't going to care about having the full ironclad consensus of Ethereum and to buy a 10-cent hat to put on their Fortnite player. So the idea would be, you as an application vendor, you run a server, transaction gets into that server, you basically run your own Aztec rollup within that server. And then at the end of the day, or within certain checkpoints, you take a proof of your rollup state, you put that you pump that to the Aztec network within a contract and settle up all of those trades that have happened over 6 or so hours or 24 hours within your layer 3. Is those kinds of ideas we want to support.
And would those would like that like higher level of scale still inherit the same properties that the Aztec base level has?
Once you settle on Aztec, it would, yeah.
Okay.
But before that happens, you wouldn't. You'd be trusting the server. There's also some data availability questions as well. So the application vendor will be able to brick their own layer 3, and then the users will be out of luck.
But similarly, you're saying that developers can choose the level of privacy in exchange for the level of kind of throughput or customizability
No. So what I was talking about wasn't privacy. About privacy, like it's you could design that whole system where the privacy guarantees are still ironclad. It's about consensus and liveness. Really, it's the same trade-off between L2s and L3s and other networks. But yeah, I mean, like we have a pretty clear mission. We want to make it easy to write private smart contracts and build private apps. We'll use any tech that helps us get to that goal, but we're not too interested in finding a narrative that fits into what else is happening, because we're trying to do something quite different to most of the Web3 space.
Props to you, sir. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some ideas with us. I look forward to seeing this play out. I think it's going to be a forced thing. What we'll see is we'll see KYC on Uniswap and different lending protocols. Hopefully at the same amount of time that Aztec is live and other privacy networks are coming live, then users will have this weird choice of do I abide by my nation state or do I just bridge over here? And that, my friend, is a world that is going to be interesting.
It's going to, if we execute well, and not just we, if the community executes well on its visions, it's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's very inspiring to talk to some people who are truly believers in the technology and believe in the bright future. Because nowadays there are a lot of guys in Web3 who says that it's all just pyramids and we are disappointed with the industry. So yeah, it's always great to speak with people who are deeply into technology and building something innovative.
I mean, there's still going to be meme coins on Aztec. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. It's yeah. That's the thing about permissionlessness. You can't control what people do. If they want to make frog coins and make them private, more power to them.
Yeah, thank you, Zach, for coming to us. It was really nice to talk about privacy. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, very, very technical and very, very, very inspiring again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.